Taylor woke up in his car one morning and realized this was as low as he ever felt in his life. And the prayer came to his mind, two words: help me God. At that point, he started the second half of his life, totally different. He went on to join the Fellowship for Today, and then went through a long program to become an ordained minister with Fellowship for Today. And this is the Taylor Swan that you will be hearing from. So without any more words from me, here is our lesson on the 12.
Hello, Unity of Jackson. How are you this morning?
Morning.
I'm delighted to be here with you. Today we're talking about the power of understanding. The affirmation, and I'd like you to share it with me: my understanding of truth deepens and directs my life. So let's say it together. My understanding of truth deepens and directs my life. So understanding is the ability to know, to perceive. The disciple is Thomas. He represents the ability to see beyond appearances to reality. The corresponding color is gold, and the location is the front of the brain. The power of understanding is important in developing our spiritual nature because it is the faculty that puts feet under our prayers and gives our spiritual activity something to stand on. Blind faith, faith without understanding of the spiritual laws, may get results on occasion, but our spiritual growth demands a base that is more dependable, understanding that is grounded in spiritual truth. If you know the spiritual laws, it's easier to have trust and faith. For example, the law says, "Ask and it is given." To paraphrase Charles Fillmore from the Revealing Word, the awakening of our own understanding starts with questioning. Questioning the old ways of thinking. Wisdom knows, understanding knows why. When your understanding is developed in both head and feet, not only will you have the light in the mind, but you will have the ability to apply it in your world. Share another affirmation with me. With spiritual understanding, I see myself and others with compassion. Let's say it together. With spiritual understanding, I see myself and others with compassion. Today we're going to meditate, and we're going to meditate on Marianne Williamson's quote. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. For the next 3 minutes, we're going to go into silence, and you will meet God and know yourself. So let's begin our silent period. How'd that work for everybody? Were you able to quiet your mind? That's what we want you to do. What we wanted you to do during that quiet time was for you to meet God and know yourself. That's our best possibility. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us. It's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Let's slowly come back into the room. Wiggle your toes. Move your ankles. Breathe in. Meet God and say hi to yourself. I want to welcome you into God's presence as we encounter Him in a more profound way, growing in intimacy with Him. Let's invite Him to come and meet with us today. We're created to encounter His presence, to experience His presence and His love. The special love we can only share with our Creator. We experience His love as we spend time with Him. Let His loving presence wrap around and overwhelm you. Call out His name and know God is there. Let's pause for 2 minutes and be still and know that He is there. God's manifested presence changes us because we're created in God's image. We're created to give and receive love. Our attitudes, the atmosphere, and the environment changes. His presence is the evidence of spirit in our presence. Because unconditional love changed us. Whenever we know and accept love, we're living and breathing encounters with God's love. The encounter may be experienced by giving and receiving love with another individual, or with a pet, or in nature. People may experience, sense, or feel God's presence in different ways based on how God chooses to manifest. Who felt love today? Yeah? Well, should I feel sympathy for those of you that didn't raise your hands? Come on, we all felt some love, even if it was from our pets. That was love, that matters. Okay? How about a little self-love? Who shared love with another person? Okay, there we go. Who received love today from another person? Who has felt God's loving presence today? Yes. The exchange of love, however it's manifested, is God's love. Let's take 2 minutes now to give each person an opportunity to share their experience with love.
It's nice to feel useful.
Useful's good. It's wonderful for me just to get up this morning with my wife and enjoy the morning as it sort of came to us. But then to walk in, and I came here specifically to see Taylor.
Thank you, brother.
The warm greeting I got, and the bonus was I stepped over and saw my friend Don. And it's so fun just to sort of feel remembrances of people and to get into that space. So I appreciate the opening meditation for that reason, just to sort of focus and get there with that. So thank you.
You're welcome. Dominique, beautiful.
Hi. Today I felt love when the two people next to me picked me up for this service. So, yeah.
Beautiful. Come on, Coach. I know you felt love today.
I felt love when I got out and my wife brought me a cup of coffee. And that's her heart of service. And then in picking up Dominique, just seeing her smile, you can tell that she loves us. And then coming and seeing y'all, old wrestling coach and the rest of y'all. I have friends here, and it's good to see people smile when you walk in the room. A smile is a heck of a transfer of love, and I get lots of those in my life today, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. I'm up visiting my family, and it's been a challenge in the past, but I think I'm starting to feel a presence of love for them, hanging out with them. And when I was sitting here meditating, I had the thought that I should go visit my sister. I'll take a ride and go visit her today. And I think that's the presence of God right there. Amen. Telling me to do something and share that. So I'm glad that's taking place today.
Thank you.
I feel love and loved almost every day by someone who I try to contact, an old friend. We had almost an adult lifetime's visit from our friends from Pennsylvania last week, and it just came flooding over me how much we have been for each other through the years, And then I started thinking of other friends who were the same way. So this week I called a whole bunch of people that I wanted to tell. And I also went to Midland to meet two relatives of my former husband, who I have kept friendship with all these years. And it was a wonderful day. We all loved it. So they loved, and we loved, and I loved.
Thank you.
So that was a good day.
Yes, ma'am.
As I'm listening and I'm watching Laura talk, I'm looking at Mike's face. His love for her is just fantastic.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that with us. A few years ago, I lost a mentor and friend to cancer, who I experienced God's love with when we spent time together. I can remember when I asked him to sponsor me, he stared at me in disbelief, which was a little unnerving. And I thought, uh-oh, this might not turn out so good. It seemed like a good idea. And he then said, I need to think about this. And it was all I could do to contain myself for a couple of weeks while I waited to hear from him. But I knew better than to pursue him, because he was from out east in the Boston area, and he was a little grouchy. I don't know if that comes hand in hand with being from Boston, but he sure could be sometimes. I used to take him down to U of M for cancer treatments, and he stayed alive, really, he told me on those trips down there. He stayed alive for his grandchildren. He wanted to get every minute that he could with them because they were so precious to him. One day I was sitting in a treatment room waiting for him to come to after a painful cancer treatment. And there was a beautiful nurse standing over him, checking his vitals, and his eyes fluttered open. He looked up and asked, "Am I in heaven?" He then looked over and saw me sitting there, and with a disappointed tone in his voice, he said, "Oh, never mind." How do we develop a relationship and have communion with our Creator? Invite God to take control of your life and decisions, and ask God to lead, direct, and counsel you. Spend time in fellowship with God by listening as you would in talking to a friend. Be aware of God in the activities of your day, and make yourself available. And from love, follow through when asked to do something. Act on it. Every time we encounter God through His Word, prayer, worship, dreams and visions, we're experiencing love through another human being, a shift happens. Something new or fresh occurs. This is one way you know that you've experienced God's love. Spirit loves us too much to leave us the way we are. God wants to lead us into a lifetime of divine encounters. All we have to do is open our hearts and ask. I want to tell you how much I miss standing up at that podium and being able to wave my arms around. There's a lesson in patience here, in sitting still and delivering this, but there are moments where I get excited about the message, and as the old Pentecostal ministers used to do, run and shout. All we have to do is open our hearts and ask. That's how I began this journey. Help me. It's the only prayer I had. It was all I had that I could say to end a lifetime of addiction and broken promises and loneliness. And that's all I needed, was to open my heart and ask. We spend time in prayer listening to hear what Spirit is saying to us. It's not a one-way conversation we're having. When I used to pray before Christmas, it was basically a shopping list for God. Let's see, a bicycle, a train set. Okay. I didn't sit still and let God tell me, no, you're not going to get a train set because you're a knucklehead and you'll electrocute yourself. Okay. I didn't sit still for that, but today I do. And God will speak to you when you go into prayer and you ask Him for His guidance to open your eyes and open your heart and invite Him in. It's essential to quiet ourselves, fix our eyes on our higher power, and tune to the flow of Spirit. You may want to write down what is revealed to you in a journal. Anybody keep a journal? Sure. Okay. I just call it my marching orders. You know, when my wife gives me some suggestions, I write them down. I used to call them orders, but that didn't work so well. Now I follow up with suggestions. And you know, I find that the more I listen, the better the listener I am, and the more my heart's open, and the more willing I am to serve, because that woman takes great care of me. She deserves me to be of service to her. She deserves me to follow her wishes. And it's my joy to do that. So I write them down, because that tired old excuse of, I forgot, that didn't work long. I've been married to her 10 years. That got worn out in the first 10 weeks. Okay? It's important to prioritize our time, to focus on love and hear the voice of our Creator. We're being invited into a deeper place of intimacy. Come into the secret place and return to our first love. Use your faith to discover an ever-abiding presence of God in your life. When your heart focuses on love, everything else falls into place. And then you meet yourself there. At 40, Franz Kafka, who was a famous author at the turn of the last century, he never married and had no children. He was walking through the park one day in Berlin when he met a little girl who was crying because she'd lost her doll. She and Kafka searched for the doll unsuccessfully. Kafka told her to meet him there the next day, and they would come back and look for her again. The next day, when they had not found the doll, Kafka gave the girl a letter written by the doll, saying, "Please don't cry. I took a trip to see the world. I'll write to you about my adventures." Thus began a story which continued until the end of Kafka's life. He only lived 4 more years. During their meetings, Kafka read the letters of the doll, carefully written with adventures and conversations that the girl found adorable. Finally, Kafka brought back the doll. He bought one that had returned to Berlin. "It doesn't look like my doll at all," said the girl. Kafka handed her another letter in which the doll wrote, "My travels have changed me." A year later, Kafka died. And many years later, the now adult girl found a letter inside the doll. In the tiny letter signed by Kafka, it was written, "Everything you love will probably be lost, but in the end, love will return in another way." Embrace change. It's inevitable for growth. Together we can shift pain into wonder and love, but it's up to us to consciously and intentionally create that connection. Let's have a little discussion about the story and how we know it's about God's love. Who's willing to participate? Katie?
Well, Franz cared enough. He gave out himself.
Yeah.
That gets lost in today's world, I believe.
Would you start again, Katie?
Oh, what did I say?
You did so good. Franz cared about.
Really?
All right, we'll hand her back the mic and just talk to us.
What did I say? Franz cared. He gave of himself. He cared enough to take time to acknowledge the little girl's sadness. You know? And I think that's all we have to do some days, is just acknowledge others' feelings before our own. And there's a shift there then.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there was a shift there for Franz Kafka when he started writing those letters?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there was a shift for the little girl when she realized that someone from the adult world cared about her pain?
Absolutely.
Sure. Yeah. Who else? Richard, in the back. Can we reach Richard? You might have to walk forward a little bit, brother.
The question might be, who was the student and who was the teacher?
Yeah.
I think they both helped each other. They both got something out of that. And if it hadn't been for the little girl, maybe Franz Kafka never would have been enlightened to that wonderful message.
Mm-hmm.
Just as you described that experience makes me think about the sort of serendipity of how things unfold and being open to the event. He didn't plan to see a little girl in the park. She didn't plan to lose the doll. But being open to the experience of it. And I think to myself how often I get busy about my routine, my tasks, my activities, and not staying open for those opportunities to touch humanity within myself and find the humanity in other people. You know, and I've spent a lot of years going to meetings, and I used to make the comment a lot that I would come to meetings to sit at a table with people recovering. And I would discover my own humanity through the words of other people that I could not even find in myself. So it's just striking to me that opportunities happen and are aware all the time, but often we're not available to them. So that was wonderful. Thank you.
The part about where he wrote that my travels had changed me just hit me deeply, because I see people's experiences and my own have changed me. I'm not the same person I was before, but I still am. And just to have such a powerful message as a young child in such a loving and nurturing way is something that I wish we could do more on a regular basis. And the tendency, at least for me, to want to close my heart when I go through those changes and I shift, as opposed to opening my heart to the changes and the things I'm going through, is something I'm currently struggling through. So it was a good story to hear.
Thank you.
That story made me feel like that, I had a lot of ideas of how love's supposed to look. And a lot of times I based it on external things. I mean, I think because of the way I was raised or the concepts of that. But finding the path, the spiritual path, I realized that a lot of times I don't even know that love's being present. And sometimes I recognize it later. And to know the thought that, if I'm not seeking something in return, then I'm gonna be able to feel it a lot different. Just to do something for somebody without recognizing that I want something in return, and I think that's in the story. I don't think he wanted anything in return except to show a presence of helping another person. Yeah.
That was a beautiful, beautiful story, Taylor. And it's so true where the gentleman said who was the teacher and who was the student. Because as we get older, we get tainted. She, of course, was young and still pure, so to speak, as to what she was supposed to believe and to what she was allowing just because she was untainted, I'm going to say. And through that, I think it touched him where he was able to open up, and what he said is going to continue and continue. Whoever hears that story, it's going to make a difference in them, be it at the time they hear the story or later. But it's a powerful thing if you can be around someone that allows you to grasp that ability of allowing. And thank you very much. I'm done.
This story brings up a point that as adults, when we are faced with the unexpected, like the little girl coming up, I lost my doll. It's so typical for an adult nowadays to think, I'm in a hurry, I have a schedule to make, and maybe ask the little girl, well, where did you last have it? And bombard her with questions and send her off to look for the doll by herself. But in this story, he illustrated that he did a shift to his third eye, brought upon the power of imagination, and created this story about the doll is off on an adventure and she's going to write letters, which I think to us is a lesson when we are faced with something unexpected, to shift into that our imagination and get out of the normal box of everyday life and come up with something new. And that's where I think where we connect with the God within us, it'll give us that little power of inspiration.
Now, if I had told you all to sit quietly like this, what's the possibility it would happen? Not much, huh? All right. If we don't have any more input, I'd like to close with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we ask that you reveal yourself to us and bring us a revelation of who you are and who you would like us to be. And so it is. Amen.
Please join me in the prayer of protection. I will read the first line, and the audience will repeat the second line. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us.
I am
the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God. The presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is. Wherever God is, we are. And that's the truth. And now we are almost at our close, and it's time for our closing song.